which is all about websites. And I guess that I think we all, when we start business, we all look to the first digital asset we probably reach for or seek out is, I need a website. And I talk to so many people that have spent amazing amounts of money on a website, and there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe have spent spent more than is necessary. I sometimes challenge people and say, do you really need a website? And the only reason I say that is to ask the next question, what do you want it to do? And then, of course, if you've already got a website, is it doing it? And how do you know? And that's the subject of today's session. And as we decided last week or a couple of weeks ago, Ollie and Andrew are going to lead this particular session. And essentially, they've put together a presentation so that they can get the facts out, they can get the information out, all the things we need to be considering. And what I'm going to suggest is this. You either make a note of, as subjects come up, make a note of any questions that you might have. Or, in fact, you can put them in the chat box. I'm going to be paying attention to the chat box. But I think the key is that we go through the presentation, rather than interrupt it at each stage, go through the presentation, and then discuss the issues that we want to ask more questions about. I know I saw the presentation yesterday, and there's loads of questions I've got, but I'm not going to dominate the questions. It's for you guys to dominate the questions and get the answers. So I'm going to hand over now to Andrew, and Andrew's going to share his screen. And over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Paul. Right on a minute. I'll move you out of the way. Okay. Right. Oh, hang on a minute. So I'm trying to get a presenter view out of the way. I'm going to stop share. I'm going to do that again, because the share bar was basically hiding it. So.
Always the issue. These are the problems I normally have.
Yeah. Welcome to your world, Paul.
And then you think I'm cack-handed or something like that.
You can sit back, Paul, and enjoy it.
Yes, I can.
Right, let's have another go. Right, can everybody see that? You should see two Legos.
We can all see that.
Yep.
I can.
Fantastic. Okie dokie. So basically, Ollie and myself are going to sort of do sort of sections between us. So first of all, so basically, Tour Media and Ginormous Websites. We're presenting websites with a purpose. So over to Ollie to start.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so our polls to start with was just to get everyone to think a little bit more about maybe what the purpose of their website is. And generally, both Andrew and myself find a lot of clients just don't consider this. They think that I need to have a website, it's just something I need to do. And they don't really think about what the purpose of it is. And so there are, as our poll sort of illustrated there, there are many different reasons why people have a website, but there are maybe 4 or 5 key ones. So the first one is obviously to sell directly to people. If you have an online shop, which I don't think anyone on the call does, but we'll kind of cover some elements of having an online shop. The next one is generating new leads, which is what most people want to get from their website. So that's the primary objective of it. So they want to get a new business through it. Next, people often use their websites to provide customer support. So it might be in the case, Andy might do this with his website. So clients might have a login area where they can go in, they can see their leasing details when it's, their lease is up for renewal, any particular documents they need. And then another reason why is to increase awareness, that was interesting that was quite high up on our poll this morning. And that's more of people need something there and helps to build their brand. And then and that kind of links in nicely with the other option, which a lot of people say is that they just want to have an online presence, which is quite a vague reason. And I think it comes down to people not really looking at what they want their website to do, because if you just want to have an online presence, you've invested that time and money in creating a website, but why not get it to work a little bit harder? So doing things like selling directly to people or generating new leads. It's a bit like buying a kind of a unit on a high street to store some goods in that you sell, but not having any doors or allowing any customers into it.
So how can your website have more purpose? Well, the first thing is design. So first of all, you need to think about design. So does your website look good across all platforms and devices? Is it responsive? And if you've not come across that term before, it effectively means that it's optimized for the user on whatever device you're using, be it a phone or be it a desktop. You also want to think about, I've jumped the gun a little bit, so I'm not going to go back. You also need to think about the limited use of colors and fonts. So less is more. Just as a bit of an example, I saw an extreme example a few years ago. I went to a networking meeting, and there was a chap there gave me his business card. He was like he was a sort of tech support chap. I went to his website and it looked like a migraine. It was crazy. It must have had about 20 fonts on it, all different colors, and all the headings were flashing. It looked like Bad Days of Flash. So you want to avoid those types of things. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but you need to get your design sorted. The other thing you need to have is a clear call to actions. Call to actions are really important, and it's surprising that people that don't even think about that. That you actually need to sort of signpost to people what you want to do on your website. The other thing is to have good resolution images that are relevant. A picture paints 1,000 words, which obviously the photographers on and know that full well. It's surprising that people that think that an image is a box ticking exercise on a website and it's not supporting what they're actually trying to say. Of course, all you're actually achieving with that is longer load times for your website. So, think about your images. And of course, I'm a complete hypocrite saying this, but don't use stock. I've got some nasty stock on my website, which I do need to sort out. But speak to Marcus or speak to Nick, get some proper photography done. So the next thing really is functionality and user experience. Does your website work well, and does it work consistently? Consistency is really, really important. Oh, here we go. The next one is content, and obviously content is king. Well-written copy designed to connect with your audience and get a response. My advice is don't write your own copy. The amount of clients I have that insist on writing their own copy, and it makes the projects it makes things a lot more difficult, and the end result is not as good. A good copywriter will sit down with you, really get into you and your business and get under the skin, and will actually be able to write in your voice. So I highly recommend you get the professionals in to do it. We can all write, and we're all pretty good writers, but we're not writers, if you see what I mean. So that's the next thing. Also, regularly updated. You need to be updating your content. A lot of people use blog pages for this to add sort of ongoing value, if you like. And the other thing is social proof, such as testimonials, etc. I mean, I think we've all sort of gone to buy things online, and we go and look at reviews of the business. If you're buying on eBay, or if you're buying from a company you've not heard of before, you go to Trust, Google reviews, you get your social proof. So that's really, really important. You need to think about your homepage. Your homepage is really a shop window, and you've only got a couple of seconds to get people to stay. So it's very, very important that they need to know what it is you offer, how you can help them. And also, of course, the trick of the homepage is that you show what you do, and then if people need more information, then they click on a certain section, which will then get them into the end page where they've got more detail on that particular aspect. The next thing is the inner pages. So it's really important to remember that not everybody arrives on your website on the homepage. So it's very, very important to make the inner pages optimized, and you need some sort of conversion on those pages as well. And this obviously extends to things like landing pages. So you want call to actions, for example, sign up to a newsletter, contact us, book a call, grab a freebie, etc. I've got some examples of that. If we can, Is it loading? Yes, it is. So this is Anne-Sue's website. This is her homepage, and she's got this freebie that she's given away. So basically, the deal is you give away your, you sort of give her your name and email, and then that effectively goes to her mailing list. I think she's using MailerLite for this actually, and then it will take you to the page with the freebie on. But equally, on the inner pages, what we've done is we've got this same thing, but we've got it across the top of each page. So it doesn't matter where you come in, you're going to see this free offer, and you've got the opportunity to sort of take advantage of that. Once you actually press send on this, then it goes to our main list and it goes to the free video page. The videos below this shot, the full thing wouldn't fit on the screen. But you can see, interestingly as well, that she's got here that she's going to follow you up after you've sort of signed up for the thing, just to see how you got on with the freebie, which is a sort of introduction to yoga. Similarly, another example is this website, whereby as you scroll further down the page, we have a pop-up that sort of comes in from the right-hand side to encourage you to buy the book. So those types of things are, really key. You need to make sure that you are optimizing these conversion things, not just on the homepage, but throughout, your website on the inner pages.
So what challenges do people usually have with their website? And this is probably going to be the biggest topic when we come to the discussion after Andrew and I have finished the presentation itself. So it's maybe worth us all just having a think about what it is that we're stuck with our websites. And there are often a few key things which both myself and Andrew experience with our clients when they come to us and the problems they have. So one of them is they can't easily update their website, and that can be down to a number of things. One of them might be training. They don't know, they've maybe got a CMS, so a content management system like WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or something like that behind them, but they don't know how to get in there and edit it, or it's just too clunky and they can't do it. Another challenge is you might have built your website yourself and you're not sure what to do, and can be a case, I think. And the brilliant thing about the internet is everyone can build a website. You can do it for free if you want. There's plenty of sites which will allow you to do that, but there's a certain level you're going to get to with that. I could build someone a wall for 50 quid in their garden, but give it a couple of months, that wall's not going to be there. Whereas if you pay someone, a little bit more, you're going to get a decent wall. And it's about investing in that. But we do appreciate that people have limited budgets and they start somewhere. But it does mean that they get a little bit unstuck when it comes to their website not doing what they need. Another common challenge is losing control of your digital assets. And I've come across this so many times where clients don't know who owns their domain name, where it's registered. They don't know where their emails are hosted, where the website's hosted, or anything like this. And it's quite a dangerous position to be in for a company when you end up paying, especially certain amounts to different companies, and you just don't know what you're paying for. So it's one of the, I think a recommendation we would say is to just spend a little bit of time getting to know where your digital assets are. So maybe make a little a sheet or something in your notebook where okay, don't put your passwords in it, obviously, but say my domain name is registered with or owned by this company, my hosting's with this company, my emails, maybe they're hosted by here or they're with Google Workspace or Office 365. So just to remember, these are key things for your business, so you don't want to lose control of them. And then finally, the biggest issue people have is that their website isn't working for them. So that brings us back to the kind of purpose of their website. So it can be many things. So it's not getting them leads. It's not portraying them in the way they want it to be portrayed. It might be sort of they can't control it and update it. So there's many different reasons why it isn't working for them. And again, that does come back to the purpose of it. And usually it comes down to they're not getting the traffic to their website for it to then to convert.
Yeah, so using your website as part of your marketing. So the first thing is audience. How's your website connecting with your audience? And are you specifically targeting them? So it's really important to understand who your audience is and then target that audience. The second thing is engagement. Is your website engaging with your audience? How is it doing this? And how can it do it better? So really, are you providing them with the information that they need? And are you giving them value? Are you answering their questions? That's quite a big thing at the moment, whereby, you know, there's quite a lot of things with writing stuff that answer specific questions to improve your SEO. The next thing is sales, clear call to actions and capturing data. You know, a bit like some examples that we've already seen. So is your website working as an effective sales tool? Do you have clear call to actions everywhere on your website? Are you capturing people's information? Are you offering something like a free download or a consultation in exchange for details? This allows you to build a list of customers and interested parties. And if you're selling products, are you displaying related items at checkout to enable you to upsell? I recently did that with a cake site, actually, which was quite interesting. More temptation. Retention. So how are you keeping people on your website? Are you providing valuable content for them? And how are you regularly bringing people back to your website? So this comes back to fresh content, and people use sort of latest news or blogs or these types of things. Also email campaigns and social media. The other thing is introductions, so you can keep your network up to date and referral pages. So basically, how can you do this? Keeping your network updated on what you do. You can have an offers page for referrals, discounts, special prices, etc. So quite a lot of us have sort of referral partners that we you probably give a percentage to or something like that. You can actually do something like that on your website to sort of encourage that. And also special content for them to download.
So once you've considered how your website and marketing can work together, you need to obviously get more traffic to your website. And the first place to start with that is to think about what your business goals are. So are they to increase the number of clients that you have? Are they to sell more products or more of a certain product or certain service, or increase brand awareness? And then to let those inform your marketing strategy. So if you want to increase your number of clients, how is your marketing strategy going to then do that? Then once you've got an understanding of your business goals and your marketing strategy, you can then use certain tools such as SEO, Google Ads to achieve that. And one of the key things to remember is things don't work in isolation. So SEO doesn't work on its own. Your website doesn't work on its own. You need to have them both together. So you need to drive traffic to your website, but your website also needs to be designed for conversions. So by that, we mean, as Andrew sort of covered briefly earlier as well, is that well-written, compelling, persuasive content that encourages your clients or users to do something. Social proof is a great one. So we covered that briefly earlier, and I'll show some examples in a second of things like testimonials, or you often see on online shopping sites, it will pop up and say bought in the last 5 minutes. Addressing objections and answering questions and showing clear call to actions. So this is an online shop. They sell cards and low value items. So, a couple of quids for theirs. So part of increasing the conversion rate on this site, we added this bar at the bottom so that whenever you scroll down the page, when you've finished reading about the item, you've always got an add to basket button there. So it increases the conversion rate there. This website is for a lawn care expert, and he discovered that people were coming to him over some of the big franchises. And there was a reason why they were doing that. It's because it was just him. And so you were getting the same person coming every time to look after your lawn. They got to know each other. He got to know your lawn. And we realized that this was his unique selling point. And so we wanted to make sure that we shouted about that on the website and made it really clear to his customers that's what he does. So if you've got something which makes you unique, don't be shy about putting that on your website and telling people. This website is just a very brief example showing how social proof can work on a website. So this is a slideshow here which brings in live reviews from the client's Google business page. and that will just update every day and allows people to see that there are genuine reviews and genuine customers there. And then finally, this is an example of how pop-ups and upselling can work. So on this website, they have a trial product that costs £2 that is a sort of a lead for people to get into the site. But they also sell subscriptions, which is where they make more money. So people do a monthly subscription. So when people come onto the trial product page, after a couple of seconds, a pop-up pops up, obviously, and it says, encourages them to look at the subscription products. And again, we found an increase in the uptake on the subscriptions by offering this solution here. So in terms of getting more traffic on the site, and this is where we'll get a little bit more technical. So if you have any questions, obviously, as Paul sort of said, just write them down and we'll hopefully answer them all afterwards. But getting more traffic to your website. So the first place to come to with that is search engine optimization, so SEO, which is broken down into 4 key areas. So you have on-page SEO, which is basically the content on your website. So making sure that the content answers questions and is optimized so that things like it includes the keywords you're targeting. It also means including those keywords in other places. So in your headings, in your image tags, in the image file names themselves. So if you're optimizing the page for blue bananas, you want to sprinkle that term around the page a couple of times. So not just in the content, but in the headings, in your page title, in the image names, and also the image description. You have off-page SEO. So basically the search engines see every link to your website as a vote for it. And the more votes you get, the more authoritative it sees your site and the higher up it'll put it. And there are various different ways of getting links back to your site. Some of them are good, some of them are very bad and wouldn't recommend doing them. Some of the good ways are basically writing good content that other people want to share. So for example, I'll pick on Andy just because he's on my screen, but if for Andy, he might write a really good piece about, electric charging in Bristol for cars and how that's becoming more popular, where maybe the sites are for them. Then he can push that out to his network and it's content which people will be interested in and want to share. And another way of doing that, and I think Nick and Martin are quite good at this, is if you're writing an article, is to include someone else in it, because then they'll share that content on their site as you will yourself, and they'll push it out to their network. So reaching out to collaborators and creating content together works. Some old-fashioned ways of doing it used to be commenting on blog posts and putting a link back to your website in your comment, which isn't a particularly good idea these days. It's seen a little bit of spammy unless you've been doing it, unless you're already involved in that community and you've built up a kind of rapport there. Technical SEO is so the technical aspects of your website. So things like having an SSL certificate. So the little padlock up in your website address bar is a ranking factor. So the search engines will say if it's insecure and it will drop you down slightly. Page speed, so making sure that it loads up quickly, is another aspect of technical SEO. Fixing things like broken links. So you might find on your website that you wrote or created a new page a year or two ago, and then you deleted that page, but you've still got links to that page. So it's making sure that you do an audit on your site and go through this and remove any broken links, and adding a custom 404 error page. So you've probably all experienced this when you go to a website and click on a link, that page isn't there. Sometimes you'll get a generic browser page which says error 404, page can't be found. But what's quite nice if you do a custom one that says something like can't find what you're looking for, but have you tried looking using our search, and have a search bar, or contact us if you're stuck and you still need to find information. And then finally, we've got local SEO. So if you're a business that is looking to rank in a local area, so Rod, for example, and I think the majority of us on here actually that work in a certain area, but I'll sort of pick on Rod here, that if you're looking to rank in a local area like Wales or Bath or Bristol, local SEO is really key to that, because you want to optimize for locations. And the most important way to do that, and it's free, is setting up a Google business listing. And that means that when people are on their search engines and they're searching for funeral director in Wales or car leasing in Bristol, you've got a higher chance of popping up on the little map which shows there. SEO is something that works over a long period of time, and it takes investment, both sort of financially, but most importantly, time. So you need to spend time doing it. Google Ads is another way of getting traffic to your website, and it's a good quick fix to get people on there and to get exposure to a wider audience. You can have two types of Google Ads. I'm going to be very generic here. So you have a smart campaign, which most people can set up. You create an account, you put in your website address. It will even tell you what keywords from your website that you ought to include on your campaign. You put your budget in and off it goes. And that's really good. And it gets, you know, for certain businesses, it works really well. Then there are manual campaigns where you can set it up and you specifically create ad groups. So you might say, for example, I've got an ad group running that I'm just targeting people that want hosting for their website. And then I might have another one that's there that people want SEO, and another ad group that wants websites itself. And the great thing about the manual campaigns is you have much more control over it. So you can see things like your conversion rates, your cost per clicks down to a keyword level, so that you can go in, regularly check it and see, actually after a week, this one keyword for website hosting is costing me £50 today. Is that giving me that return in money? And if not, turn it off, or you can set a lower budget for that particular keyword. So Google Ads is really good for that kind of instant wins, but it does take time to work. There's a learning phase when you first set it up as well, where it goes through, and it constantly takes optimization to go in and check it, make sure you're getting it in the sweet spot, especially if you're selling products and you don't want to be getting people to your website and it's costing you £2 a click, and that's taking all of the margin out of your product. The next way to get traffic to your site is obviously email marketing. We've all been around, you know, had our businesses for a little while now, so we've probably got a good list of clients. So engage with our existing clients through email marketing. So using things like MailChimp, MailerLite, there's Klaviyo is another one, a host, HubSpot, I think a whole host in our CRMs as well will do this email marketing. You can do some brilliant things, especially with MailChimp, where you can link it up to, say, QuickBooks. So every time you add a new customer in QuickBooks, it automatically import them into MailChimp, and you can see the value of their business. You can create things like automations as well in MailChimp. So if, for example, you've got your clients in MailChimp and you've worked with a certain client and you've offered them, I don't know, a car valet, you can then tag them as car valet. They get put in a certain group. And then with the segmentation and automation, periodically you can send them messages which are just targeted around car valeting, rather than sending them things which they might not be relevant to them. So again, it's making sure that it's highly targeted, and that works again really well if you're selling products online, because it can tag them what product they bought. So if you know someone's bought an item, say razors, and you know that after 4 weeks their razors, they're going to run out, you can then send them automatic reminders to get a new one. So this might work, you know, for the photographers, for example. You might want to send out a regular email, you know, seasonally. Have you thought about updating your photos to reflect, you know, the new styles, the weather now, you know, it's spring, you know, let's have a photo shoot outside. And that's all about engaging with them and then driving them to your website as well. So people aren't going to read huge amounts on your email, but if you can then create a call to action that pushes them through to your website. And then finally, don't forget offline marketing. People often think print is dead, but it's not. And our audiences don't exist solely online. You know, we do things outside of our offices and our computers. So think about where your audience might be and try and engage with them in those places. So for an example, a client of mine, they sell robotic lawnmowers. When they do an installation at a client's house, I designed and printed a whole set of A5 flyers for them, which basically says, we've just installed this at your neighbour's property. Here are the benefits of it. So once they've finished installing, they just walk down the road and pop them through the letterboxes of all the neighbours. So yeah, think about where your clients might be outside of the internet and how you can then connect with them and give them, you know, obviously don't forget to put on your leaflets and business cards your website address to get them back to your website.
How do you measure the success of your website? Well, the first thing that a lot of people don't do is to ask your customers how they found you, and record this, ideally in your CRM. This is really key, because although all the technology we've got, actually just speaking to people, that's absolute gold. So you really do go to the effort and have a chat with your customers and just find out how they found you, if they had all the information that they needed, etc., etc. Of course, the next one really is Google Analytics, which everyone's heard of. But really the importance of Google Analytics is to configure it properly. And that's especially important when it comes to online sales. It's also important to set up goal tracking. And the other thing that people don't tend to do is to have regular reports. And regular reports are really, really crucial, because it makes you understand whereabouts you actually are. And when you create these regular reports, it's also very important to be comparing different months, different years, etc. It allows you to see, what's worked in the past, what's working now. It helps you to optimize stuff.
So Google Ads as well. So when you've got your Google Ads running, is to make sure that there's some form of conversion tracking. This can be harder if you're a service-based industry, because you'll find that people will contact you in various different ways. So they won't buy a product on your website. They will phone you up. They might email you. They might complete a contact form on there. So there are different ways you can track them, but making sure that Google Ads is linked up to your Google Analytics account is just one of the basic ways to do that, to make sure that you're getting some kind of conversion data through from one place to the other.
The next one is Google Search Console. Now, most people heard of Google Analytics. A lot of people haven't heard of Search Console. Search Console is really, really useful, because it basically allows you to analyze the search performance of your site. And it actually shows you the keywords that people are using, or the search terms people are using, that end up finding your website. Also, if you're using things like WooCommerce, if you've got an online shop, etc., a lot of these tools come with their own reporting mechanisms as well, so you can leverage that. And finally, as well, things like Facebook pixel tracking. Funny enough, I've just put one of these in for a client. And again, it just allows you to track the sort of engagement, and things like Facebook pixel. You can track page views, but you can track interactions as well. If someone submitting a form, for example, you can actually track that. So really, really crucial that you get this stuff set up. A lot of people think that websites are a magic bullet. And it can do everything for you, and they're not. And you need to track what you're doing. You put a lot of time and effort into it to ensure that you track things. So coming on to, if I can get the slide to change, here we go. Key actionable steps that you can take today. So really, you need to think about the purpose of your website, and also bear in mind that everything on there should be there for a reason. Don't just chuck images on there because you think you need an image, or whatever it is, or video's big, so let's chuck a video on. You need to make sure that it's there for a reason. It's there, that it's supporting and it's enforcing the message that you're trying to give to your visitors. It goes from the fonts and the colors to the design and the content. Everything is absolutely critical that you think very carefully about what you put on your website.
And as Andrew said, Google Analytics, making sure that you're utilizing that effectively, is a key step you can take today. And there are several bits in Google Analytics which I'll just run through, which you'll find really useful and that you can get some great data from. So it will depend. There's two versions of Google Analytics around. So you have the universal one, which is a sort of slightly older version, which is, in my opinion, easier to use. And then there's a new one, which is Google Analytics 4, which is a bit trickier to get the information you need from. So there are obvious statistics such as users, sessions, and duration. So users are obviously the number of people that have been on your website. Sessions is each user might view your website several times, so that is classed as a session. And then duration is the length of time they've been on the site. So you obviously want length of time to be pretty high. you want to look at devices and see which is popular. Going back a few years, desktop used to be the highest percentage. It used to be, at least 60-40. Now it's flipped, and you'll find that mobile devices are the ones which access your websites more. And that will vary again, depending on what industry you're in. But it's important to look at that and then make sure that those are optimized for conversion. So if you find that majority of your users come from a mobile device, you want to check your website on your phone and make sure that it works well and that your key call to actions are always visible and accessible. So looking at acquisition as well. So this basically means where your traffic is coming from. Acquisition is usually broken down into organic. So that's people who entered a term on Google or other search engines and found your site. And then you can use Search Console to figure out what those terms are. Then there's direct. So people who have typed in your website address in the address bar. Then there's referrals as well. So people who have clicked a link and come to your website, and then also social. So it will list if people have come, you've done a blog post or LinkedIn post and people have clicked on a link to your site, that will also show where they're coming from. You also want to look at your most popular pages on your site. You'll find that your homepage will probably be the most popular because it's generally the one people arrive at. But it's also worth looking at the other ones and making sure that they're working hard for you and they're well optimized with, like we said earlier, sort of that compelling content, key to actions, offering them something in exchange for their data. Also look at exit pages. So this is really important. So the exit pages are the pages on your website where people leave. So they've got to your site, they've looked at this page, and then they've gone off elsewhere. And you'll find your contact page might be high up there, which is a good thing because people have obviously found the information they need to contact you and left. If you've got a pricing page, you might find that is one of the popular pages which people leave on. And you can either think, okay, are my prices too high, or have they found what they need? They're just doing research, or is it worth me taking my prices off? Or can I do more on that page to get their data and their information? So yeah, just being aware of where people are leaving your site and what you can do to keep them on there, or if they're leaving, to try and capture their information. There's other things you can look at as well. So user flow is quite a good one. So in analytics, you can delve into where people arrived on your site, so maybe the homepage, and you can then see what route they took for your website. So for me, I have a particular route I like people to take. I want them to come on my homepage. I want them to go on my portfolio, maybe go on my services, and then go on to my contact page. And so I can use Google Analytics to try and check this and see, are they doing that, or are they doing something completely different from what I've expected and want them to do? And should I maybe forget what I want and try and meet their demands a bit more?
So the real takeaways, I think, are you focus on quality content that answers your searcher's question. Every search is a quest for information. So they're looking for something. You need to make sure that you actually supply the answers to these questions. Think about what they want. Think about what they're looking for, and answer the question as comprehensively and authoritatively as possible. So thank you very much, and over to any questions.
Absolutely brilliant, guys. Very aware. You can see that there's a lot of prep gone into that. I'm beautifully bobbed around between both of them. Excellent, really good and informative. I must admit, when I saw this yesterday, I thought, wow, there's so much content here, so much valuable. I had the advantage of having the notes, and I've got scribbled everywhere. And by the way, we're going to give you the notes after the meeting so that you can go back and look back at the recording and go back along with your own notes. All I would say is that, to me, I was thinking of Andy Hook at the time of this, because the next big investment we normally make in our business actually is a vehicle. And we wouldn't think of buying a vehicle and then just driving it and never cleaning it, never having it serviced, never polishing it. And if that's the way we look at our website, we've invested in that. We really ought to regularly ask the questions. Is it doing what I set out to do? Have my expectations changed? And regularly looking at it, ideally with the person that created it. And if you're not satisfied with somebody new. So I'm going to open up. I'm going to hand it back to Andrew and Ollie to take the various questions.
Yeah, I'll maybe start off and just ask, just following the poll, is everyone happy with their websites, how it's working for them at the moment? Does it meet their purpose? Nick had just had his hand up, so.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what do you think are the most kind of common problems, or the biggest problems people or mistakes people make with their website? Because obviously we've gone through a huge amount. Is there kind of as website designers, if you're picking up websites from other designers, what's the biggest mistake that people make, do you think?
Yeah, so I'll go from my perspective first. Andrew's, we share, I think, very similar actually with our clients and the issues they've had. But the biggest one tends to be things done on the cheap, and so they'll put everything in it. So things like themes, which can be good if they're done well, but building a site from scratch is a better option. But obviously it's a more costly option. But the problem when people buy a theme cheap, it comes with lots of different elements which don't get updated, they don't work together. There was only this week, there was a company who, Asset Pack, I think it was called, who sell themes and plugins that have been discovered that have a huge vulnerability in them. So that's often, an issue which can happen, not to scare everyone, with websites, but it is just something which happens if you buy, people can do a website for 200-300 quid, for that reason, because they just buy a theme that costs them 50 quid to do it. And then there's not a huge amount of experience or technical skills there. So if things go wrong, to then fix it. So I think that's probably, from a technical point of view, is the biggest issue which people have. And then I think from a design and content point of view, is just, not thinking about what they want their website to do. So they'll just put on what they think. So they just want to put their brochure online, but not to actually think about, okay, what do my clients want to see? Like we sort of said, Andrew covered in the end of our presentation, is everyone on the internet they want to have a question answered. And so think about that in terms of your business, okay, they want headshots. And, Nick, we've been working on, answering plenty of questions on your site recently, but it's thinking about what is their goal? What are they doing? And that's where I think people don't think about. So they don't think, why is this person coming on my website? What do they want to know? So for me, for my business, they want to see examples of my work is the biggest thing. And I've seen a lot of website companies that don't put examples of their work on there. And so, I think it's just making sure that you're aligning what you want your website to do with what your potential customers want to do. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, just to say, one of the things that I've been coming across quite a lot recently is people, you say about people do it on the cheap. People using stuff like Squarespace, Wix, all these types of things. And I've had a number of conversations with people where they've used something like Squarespace because it's cheap and cheerful, and it's a software as a service thing, basically. You'll always pay for it, you'll never own it. But it's fine to get up and running, but quite often what happens is that, after 1-2 years, a business has grown and they need to do something else on their website. They can't do it because Squarespace doesn't support that. So these things, they can be. If that's all you're ever going to have, that's fine. But quite often in business, you don't quite know where it's going to go. You grow in different ways and what have you. So actually, getting the platform, like Ollie and myself use WordPress these days. We used to build WordPress the proper way, like typing, as I like to call it. But WordPress is such a great platform that will grow with your business. You can start off small and low cost, but further down the line as you grow, you can add functionality into it, like memberships. You can add learning management systems into it, sell courses. And if you can think about it, you can pretty much do it on WordPress. Whereas stuff like Squarespace, great for the first couple of years, and then it's a dead end. So that's one of the big ones that I've been finding recently.
I think Rod had a question, and then Martin.
Yeah, my question, it was an observation more than a question, is that I think, I spend so much time up on my market stall once a week, 5-6 hours. And I've got a shop on the high street, which is on my website, isn't it? And I don't clean the windows. I don't hoover the floor. I don't go in there. It's almost like it's a hidden magical place that I don't know much about. And that is the scary thing, isn't it? From our own point of view, that we've got this bloody shop. It's on the high street. Everybody can see it if they want to. We don't even clean the bloody windows. It's ridiculous. It's no wonder no one goes in.
So the way you started that, Rod, I thought you were going to break into Shaking Stevens' This Old House.
No. But yeah, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? That there we are. We spend, a bit of money on a website. Everybody can look at it, and people judge you from what they see online these days, don't they?
Yeah.
And you can stand on the marketplace, freezing yourself to death this weather, and talk to all number of people, but hundreds of thousands of people can look at you online. So it's ask about face, really. But they are.
Maybe the answers are closer than you think. I mean, in reverse, I go down the high street, and especially during COVID, and I look at the number of retailers, and I think, I bet they wish they'd put part of their business online and sold online. And it still, to me, I fail to see why retailers are not investing in an e-commerce site, whether they see that's going to dilute their business. I really don't know. It's beyond me. Martin, you had a point.
Yeah, it was just a question about content management. So you obviously talk about Squarespace. So if somebody had a Squarespace site, how easy is it to migrate to something like WordPress? And also, what are the advantages of WordPress as opposed to content systems like Joomla or Drupal? What draws you both to WordPress?
I think I'll just sort of answer that initially before I hand back over to Ollie. I think WordPress is a massive community. I think, off the top of my head, it's running something like 60% of websites with a content management system globally. It's a massive community. Things like Joomla and stuff, and Drupal. I've used Drupal in the past. I needed a PHP developer with me to do it. Now, that was a long time ago, so things may have changed. But the thing with the WordPress community, it's massive. There's an incredible amount of support out there, from security side for everything. And that's why I think WordPress is, a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest with you. What do you think, Ollie?
Yeah, I completely agree. I've been asked to move a Drupal site before, and that was outside my skill set. So I've got a friend of mine who's a senior software developer, and he said not a chance in hell that he was going to look at it. So that Drupal and Joomla are just so complicated. I think, as Andrew says, things like the White House is built on WordPress. There's a couple of Sony websites, massive ones, which run it, and it's got a great support network around it. The main downside of it is because it's so well used, is it's very vulnerable. So it's making sure, and this is maybe a good tip for everyone, is to have security plugins. So make sure that you've got a good security plugin on your site that stops things like the brute force attacks. So people going on there constantly putting in different passwords, you want to get them blocked after a certain amount of time. You can get free plugins. So the one I'd use is WordFence, and would recommend. There's another one called iTheme Security that are all free. You can pay for a license, and they're not expensive. They're about £100 a year, and they're definitely a worthwhile investment. And then Martin, just going back to your first point about how easy it is to move a Squarespace site, I think you said, over to WordPress. As there might well be a plugin to kind of, as Andrew sort of says, there usually is one for everything to kind of migrate things, but you'll probably find it would be easier to rebuild it. So take the content you've got and rebuild it. I'm doing that with a couple of clients at the moment, and it's a time-consuming thing if you've got a large amount of content on your site. But as you're probably aware as well, Martin, once you've got a content management system and you've got the main template that you've designed and built set up, then it's just a case of that time going through and copying the content across.
I think maybe the website, the actual construction of the website is more to do with what the web designer favors. And I would have thought it's more important, given the content of this particular presentation, that whatever platform you're on, you ought to focus on whether whether it's doing what you want it to do rather than what it's on. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'd also say with WordPress though, you'll find more developers are used to it. So with things like Drupal and Joomla, it's quite hard to find someone that can manage that site, and take it on. So if you're working with someone and they can no longer work on that site, or you've got a website built in that platform, you'll find it's so easy to find someone that can manage a WordPress site and take it on. Whereas someone who can look after a Drupal site, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And it does thread into.
Sorry, Andrew.
It does thread into what you want it to do as well, because as I was saying, it will grow with your business, unlike stuff like Squarespace, which is a potential dead end. So platform picking a platform is actually quite important first step, really, and there's not enough information out there.
So it's more important if you've got to ask the question, where do you see yourself, what you want it to do, and where do you see it taking you in the next 3 to 5 years?
Definitely.
It's a good point. I think it was either Marcus or Jason had a point. I noticed it was one of the men in black.
Well, it's just, a good analogy on that is if you're going to buy a car and there's a Ford dealership at the end of your road, sometimes it's better to go on the doorstep because they deliver the same sort of performance, but it's just this personal favoritism. But just one question I was going to ask the guys, what's your take on domain names? So I've been doing websites for a few years, and I also trade in domain names, and it really amuses me. I know some quite high level business people I know that would never pay for a domain name because the bloody squatters have stolen them. And no, you'll always get a name for free, versus, as you probably know, there's a huge trade in high value names, both from a branding point of view and an SEO. And do you have any opinion, or how do you guide your clients on that?
Good question, Jason. My first opinion is I bloody wish they did introduce just .uk at the beginning. Why we ended up with .co.uk and every other country had, .in and .ru and things like that. Why we had to have .co. So I'd say, I really like the .uk ones. Buying domain names, I'm guilty. I'm going to pay off this month one I bought for $2,000, actually, a domain name that I feel for my business that.
What was that then? Just share. What was the domain name?
The domain name. So a lot of what I specialize in is SEO. So I want to have a separate company for that. And so I bought questseo.com. And that cost me $2,000. I bought another one years ago for about £600-700, but this is the most expensive one, and felt that it was really right for what I want this part of the business to be. So I think there's a level at which you want to spend, and most people have registered everything these days. So trying to find a domain name which hasn't been registered is quite difficult. And also, I think Jason touched on this, is when you're thinking about domain names, is thinking about keywords as well. So you can have what they call exact match domains. So where, say, for example, for me, my keywords might be web design Glastonbury. I could register that domain name, so www.webdesignglastonbury. There's different schools of thought.
On that, maybe would you have two websites? I've got a client friend of mine, and he has his core business name, but we've just registered some landing pages and got one of those to rank for his keywords. So someone like Rod, he has his business name. So would you recommend a client maybe have a second website? Yeah,
it's not, I've seen clients who pay for these domain names, and all they get done with those is they get pointed to their main site, and they have no benefit whatsoever for SEO in that case. It's good to have landing pages, like you say. So like for Rod, for example, you might have, and we've sort of spoken about this, but I think he's looking at having separate sites eventually. So for sort of Bath and Bristol and his Wells and Glastonbury and Street. Landing pages work really well, but I think there is the danger of diluting your main website. So if it's, from my point of view, I often create extra pages on your current website. So for example, on my site, I've got different landing pages for different locations around here. And Google, if anyone's into learning a little bit more about the technical stuff, they do some really good videos on YouTube and lives with a guy called John Muller, who's one of the kind of heads of search at Google. And they talked about this week, actually, about locations. And is it bad to kind of have, you know, pages which target thousands and thousands of different locations? And they sort of said it's fine to do it, you know, in a reasonable location. So if you're targeting, you know, 10 or 12 locations around your business area, your core area. So, you know, like Andy, he might have a sort of landing page for Cardiff and Swindon and things like that. That's kind of okay to do. So yeah, I mean, I think landing pages, though, Jason, you know, they work really well, especially if you've got a separate product from your main site as well that you really want to push to people. So there's a client I've worked with which offer hand washing stations for schools. They're obviously very popular at the moment with COVID and things like that. And it was part of their main manufacturing website, but their main manufacturing website covered everything, you know, from cupboards to toolboxes, whereas they had this one very specific product. So to create this landing page about that product that's well targeted in terms of keywords and locations, and then that can drive traffic back to their main site as well, is beneficial, again, because it has a link back to it. So yeah, there's never a kind of like a simple answer, but hopefully that kind of covers it.
If Jason deals and sells and buys domain names, it's not you that's actually just registered Fizz with Liz for Liz Truss's attempt to be the next.
No, I haven't. No.
You wished he had.
I don't know. I wish I had the article. There was an article yesterday I was reading about people buying domain names, and somebody had bought it and sold it for $80,000. And funny enough, I registered a name which I've not used, and immediately somebody, the hosting company, said this could be worth $600 $680. So
just for example, a couple of days ago, I've just bought personalbranding.co.uk. that I think I pay £50 for it because I know someone that's in the space. We're going to have a chat later this afternoon. And, my little New Year bonus was someone inquired about wholesale supplies, and I checked them out, and they were a big e-commerce, like £1 million turnover retailer of business stuff. And I also owned health and safety equipment. So I wrote back and said, well, I'll bundle the two together for you. And they paid £1,000 for two small names that are individual product lines amongst their whole portfolio. So that's quite a good example of someone being proactive on that.
See, this is why I always like conversations with Jason. He's very streetwise savvy. Nick, you had a question.
Yeah, it's a question, I guess, to both Andrew and Dolly. I think we're kind of seeing continuing trends that people are just becoming more easily distracted. And if we throw too much information at people, they can just either bounce or they can't work out what to actually look for or what to read. I just wonder, from a design point of view, do you think the trends for websites are going to go towards more visual websites with more kind of iconography and less words, so that you can actually get your message across more quickly? And also there seems to be this trend for long scroll homepages where you don't even have secondary, third pages on the website. You just have one long homepage. So yeah, just kind of any thoughts you've got on design trends and how users are using websites going forward?
There was a sort of thing that went on several years ago with that sort of trend of just having, you know, a one pager which just contained the entire site. The problem with that is that, you know, and you can use like things like loading tricks to make sure you're not trying to load the entire website, you know, one hit, you know, so you can sort that type of stuff out. But just from a sort of analytics tracking perspective, it's just a lot easier just to track separate pages. You know, if you're not setting up, there is ways of doing it, but if you're not setting up properly, then, you know, you could say, oh, what's somebody that's on my website or my homepage, because that's it. So there's little things like that, I would say. I think you're right. I think less is more, but of course there's also the whole thing, I suppose, going both ways really. People are more distracted, but also there's a lot more long form content as well turning up. So I think it's where you put it and how you design it. And of course,
so you don't think the long form copy is dead, Andrew?
Well, Google needs a certain amount of copy to understand what a page is as well. So you can get what I call thin content, you know. And I've got a client at the moment who's completely guilty of that, but they won't listen. But you know, then they wonder why they're not doing very well in their search results, because they're not given enough information. You know, you can't write 100 words on a page and expect Google to be able to fully understand what you're trying to sell. So there's a sweet spot, I think, and you're right. It's constantly shifting. What do you think, Holly?
I think single pages, fine, and I'm doing a couple for clients just because budget's limited. But if you're trying to make your website work better for you, which is what we're generally talking about, having a single page, you can only really optimize for one keyword. So Google will struggle to, if you've got 20, not even 20 different keywords on a single page, the search engines will struggle to understand what your website is about. Whereas if you've got your homepage and you've got a page for service 1 that's optimized for that service, page for service 2 that's optimized for that, it's much clearer to the search engines, but it's also to your customers and your users as well. In terms of content, I think there's a balance. You need to get across what it is you do really quickly. People only have a couple of seconds when they get on the website to look at it and understand, does this meet my needs? Is this answering my questions? I'm looking for a headshot photographer. Does this website answer that question? Yes, it does. And then they'll delve a little bit deeper. And then that's where I think the long form content comes in. And I think it's really important to be, for everyone here actually, is you want to kind of be an authority on your subject. So on your business, what you do. So whether it's, you're helping people write books, whether you're, helping people design brochures and things like that, you want to be an authority on that. So long form content is what will help with that. So talking about, maybe the trends in brochures, or, report on accounts, this is what you should feature in there, different presentation styles, and to have long form articles. And they're the things which are more likely to get shared as well. So if you've got, an article that's only a paragraph long, people are going to read it, toss it away and not really do much more with it. But if you've got a great thought leadership piece all about, the infrastructure for electric charging and how that's going to blow up, these are the companies you should look out for, these are your options, people are more likely to engage with that and share that across different platforms.
You just said something there about content, and earlier you talked about copywriting, don't write it yourself. To me, there's 3 areas here. There's either write it yourself, get a copywriter to write it, or get a copywriter that is savvy with the use of keywords. Because if keywords are the thing, and I know that there used to be keyword stuffing, etc., throw loads of keywords. If you're saying there's only, on a page, they're only looking for one keyword, surely before we do anything, when you've decided what you wanted to do, the web designer should actually give a brief to the copywriter or indeed to the individual that's writing it. That's why probably writing it yourself is a no-no.
But writing it, I think I'm quite good at English and they're able to write quite well. I write for a national magazine once a month, things like that. But I've read proper purpose-driven copy for a website, and it's next level. I can't write that kind of stuff. It's just the way they use words, the way it's so persuasive and things like that. There's such a difference between what I think a well-written bit of text is and what a copywriter can kind of do. For a website is so different, and a copywriter will need you to give them an idea of what your business is about, because they don't know what it is, but then they will take that and put a certain tone of voice on it. Do you want it to be friendly? Do you want it to be professional? Do you want it to be informative? That kind of thing. But again, it's one of these things, a bit like photography, that people are, it's an investment for people to do, but the difference it can make on websites is phenomenal. Well-written copy. And I don't know whether, like Anne-Marie, whether it's anything she touches on in terms of copywriting for people or anything like that.
But I think that I've actually got it down on my list of subjects to cover in the future is copywriting. That's for sure. That is a subject and a skill in itself. Marcus, you had a point.
Oh.
To which he's left.
He's gone.
Get him away. Anne-Marie was going to say something, I think, Paul.
Yeah. Anne-Marie.
Sorry, I do apologise. I've got 18-year-old in the background moaning about buses and can I please take him to college? So I'm sort of I'm a little bit conflicted, but you were talking about copywriting, weren't you?
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. I think, I just made a couple of notes, obviously, when you were talking, Ollie, about the thought leadership pieces. And that's not something I've really considered, but I think there is a huge amount of value in that. And the way I just kind of suddenly thought about it was, what questions do I commonly get asked, or why do people commonly come to me, and then create the piece around it. So the main thing that everyone says to me, which is why the business is called Beginner Book, is that they don't know where to start. So they've got the ideas, they've got the content, they've got the thought, they've got the, but they have no idea how to start putting this thing together. So yeah, great. Why not just produce content around that? I don't personally do copywriting. I can, but I don't, because I'm more of a kind of storyteller, long form writer. So anything that I would produce for my website, I would potentially look at getting someone else to kind of give it the once over, maybe, because it is a different skill.
Yeah, I suppose you've got a copywriter would have to say, if there's anything about them, what do you want this to say, and what do you want people to feel, and what do you want people to do? I would have thought that's got to be the remit. Jason,
just some thought on that, and I know this topic on its own could cover all marketing. We go for months and months, but one thing maybe you didn't mention, guys, was the idea of split testing. And one thing when people have come to me in the past and have said about SEO, I basically blanket until I know they have a website that converts. So until they're prepared to invest in Google Adverts to know if hot traffic converts into what they want to do anyway, I won't even consider SEO. And then obviously split testing is key. So maybe that's something, if you've got any feedback or thoughts or experiences of that can be good for doing copy. Yeah.
Can I just make a comment on that, Jason? Sorry. Obviously you said that you, correct me if I'm wrong, were you saying that you want people to have a decent website before you'd start looking at whether it works? So you want them to invest in Google Ads before you kind of look at anything else? Is that what you were saying, or did I mishear you?
SEO. So as the guys touched on, and it's such SEO on it. I know one guy that his minimum monthly fee is $2,500 a month if you want him to SEO your website, because you can build a beautiful looking website and all the text and everything's great, but there's lots at the back end, which the guys will tell you needs work. So before you start worrying about optimizing given keywords to rank on Google, you need to know whether those keywords are even going to turn into customers. For example, if you search for red shoes, you don't know whether that's a buying term or whether that's a research term. And so there are ways that you certainly build the website, it has to look right, but then to test whether, for example, with You Begin a Book, you're looking for people that want to write a book, you might run some adverts, but nobody here knows which adverts are going to get people to buy your course. So you then test different.
Yeah, I understand that, and I bow to your greater experience on that. My worry with that is funding. For a small company, is if you sort of say, right, you've got to fund your ads, you've got to fund this, you've got to fund that. It's quite a difficult.
How much? That's an interesting topic.
Balance.
How much do you think it would cost to run some adverts on Google?
I don't know. Reasonable amount. I don't know. You've got to spend a certain amount a day, haven't you? 20, 30 quid a day or something.
Well, you can start wherever you like. But as an example, if you wanted you wanted to advertise to anybody, and sorry guys, I'm going to take over your presentation here. If someone wants to learn how to write a book, it's the keyword string, how to write a book. If someone types that into a search engine, there's a pretty good idea that they're looking to learn how to write a book. So you might choose to actually, first of all, test that and see, is anybody else paying for that keyword in a Google ad anyway? Because if there's no one paying for it, there's either no one offering the product or it doesn't work. But you might say, right, I'm going to prepare to pay up to 50 pence a click. So you might invest even as much as £50, but to have 100 people that are all trying to learn how to write a book to look at your website. And if you invest £50, given the value of your time and the value of your course, if 100 people look at your webpage and not one person calls you, you know there's something wrong. But the same token, you might have 3 people call you out of that. And actually, if you're offering a £200 profit service, well, then you keep advertising. But it's an evolution to work out which particular keyword strings. It might be how to write a digital book is actually far more a converting keyword string.
I think that's why you need to talk to somebody that knows SEO and knows pay-per-click, etc. Because when Google entice you with an offer of £100 or whatever, it's very tempting to go and do it. And if you don't know what the hell you're doing, it could be 100. It could be wasted because they want you to match that funding. I had a question. Sorry, Ollie.
Yeah. I was just going to jump in. Jason raised a very good point there, in that key to kind of a lot of SEO particularly is keyword research. So it's finding out what people are actually searching for to find websites like yours. So we often think that people are searching for certain things. So just trying to think of an example. So trying to think of a good example off the top of my head. So you might think people are searching for how to begin a yoga class or something like that. But what they're actually searching for is, how do I start with yoga, or what are the best poses to start with? And what will happen is people will start trying to optimize their content for things which they think people are looking for, rather than what people are actually looking for. And there are tools out there. So with Google Ads, as Jason sort of suggested, Google gives a good indication with its kind of suggested search and things like that, what people are searching for as well. So it's making sure you're actually covering content people are searching for. So, I mean, Anne-Marie and myself, we've worked on bits and pieces on her site, and we've looked at obviously how to write a book or how to begin a book, but there's also people who are looking for, how do I start the first sentence of my novel? How do I write an autobiography? There are all these other little questions which there's maybe not as many people searching for, but they're looking for what she wants. And so because there's less people searching for it, there's less competition. So it's a bit easier to rank up higher for, or more affordable if you're doing Google Ads for as well.
Isn't that the challenge? You've highlighted that, Ollie, the challenge. We know what we do, and we have opinions of what we think people might be searching for, but it could be different. So maybe a lot of people just put on their website what they do. And actually, as you've heard me say before, nobody's interested in what you do. They're interested in them and what they're left with after you've done what you do. So it's that juxtaposition of trying to consider their thought process rather than own. And that can be very difficult. Martin, you've got a point.
Yeah, I was just interested in terms of, if you're ready to commission a copywriter, do you give them basically a list of what you think are hot keywords, or do you let the copywriter write something that's organic and then change it afterwards? How does that process work?
It's good. Depends on the copywriter, I think.
Yeah, it's a good question. I've worked with various copywriters. One recently, I gave them a list of kind of keyword topics. So topics which I knew were highly ranking. So this was for a company who recycle lenses, so contact lenses, glasses lenses, and they want to be the resource for everything to do with sustainability and things like that. So I gave them a list of topics which people are searching for and have a reasonably high search volume. So things like reglazing glasses, what makes glasses frames sustainable. And I gave the copywriter these topics, and there was also an element from the business owner gave the copywriter a kind of an outline of what they wanted to achieve from the blog posts. What did they want to get from it? So they basically wanted to get people to sign up to their service. So that had to be incorporated into the copy. So generally, it's you'll find that there will be some copywriters which will be able to do all the SEO research as well, Martin, so that they will find the keywords and write the copy. But it's often a case of 2 or 3 people working together to do this. And yeah, often, like I say, in my case, Andrew might have a view as well in a minute. I'll provide a copywriter with a list of topics, and they will go away, do their bit. They will bring that copy back to me. I'll put it on the website, and then I'll make sure that that post on the website is then optimized in terms of the keywords used in the content, as we sort of covered the images, things like that.
Yeah, and I think it really does depend on the copywriter. Some copywriters, as Ollie suggested, they'll they know the tools, they understand the keywords side of things, and they'll go and do that themselves. Sometimes you need to provide it to them. And it just really depends on their sort of approach, really. So it does vary.
Good question to ask a copywriter is, have you written for the web? Have you got any examples? And how did it perform? Because to me, a copywriter that doesn't want to know how their copy performed, maybe is not thinking of, the value after they've made their purchase. I mean, a bit pedantic there. Rod, you had a point there.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes, like Anne-Marie, for instance, when you're listening to what people are saying, it's like, I think almost every other person says to someone, you should write a book. It's the common expressions that people use that Google seems to pick up. And I know, you can be too wide, like I had a call, I think yesterday from a guy in Cardiff who was looking for a funeral director to look after his individual needs from a nursing home. And it's at the same nursing home name as one here in Wales. So, we got a bit of confusion going on with Google. Wells and Wales and Fletcher's house and Fletcher's house, so I often, and I don't mean very, very often, but quite often I'll get maybe 3 or 4 calls a week that are so far off beam, and my answering service doesn't really, they're not there to tune it in. They're there just to take the call, aren't they? And to try and be nice as they possibly can and reel the person in quite nicely. It's down to me to identify who that person and where they are is, so Google can be all encapsulated, but you have to be a little bit careful about. And that's why experts like Ollie and Andrew are absolutely necessary and worth every penny by the sound of it.
I'm looking at chat. For once, hardly anybody's used it. So, but Ewan can't raise his hand, but he has a point to make. Ewan.
Can you all hear me all right? Sorry.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I think, thank you very much, Andrew and Ollie. Obviously, I work in a similar space as you, so I've kept quiet because it's your show. But I think from my point of view, the one thing that it always comes back to, and it always comes back to in marketing, is you can do anything you want depending on what your budget is. The thing to do is think about what budget have you got and what are your objectives, because it may well be that your budget, yes, we would all love to use a copywriter, but it may well be that your budget just simply can't support it.
Yeah.
And whereas the systems you want to use, you may want to use certain systems, but again, your budget may not be able to want to do it. And obviously my area of expertise is paid search on Google. And one of the areas I think that Anne-Marie raised is about budgets. Now, the one thing about paid search, again, it just comes back to what is it you want to achieve? What is your budget? You can spend anything you want on Google. You can spend £2 a day if you can. If that's giving you the response and the results that you need, that's very well. What you need is someone to look at, as we've all said, what is your keyword search? What is your budget? What are your expectations? How are you measuring? Have you got the systems on your website to measure the performance that you've done? And it doesn't have to be sales. It can be, if you've got a particular page and you set the goals up, what are the goals that you've set, so that you can understand at any point within that journey what is working and what is not working. So that would be only my point, is it's matching budget to expectations to also then doing the work in advance.
I think that's a good point, Ewan. Good points. I think I would add one thing to that. What's a new client worth to you? Because until you can answer that question, you can't ask the question, how much can I afford? Am I able to pay to get that client? Because there is a cost to acquiring any client. It's either in money up front or it's in time spent trying to do it other ways. And they're both costly.
Yeah, I agree, and it's coming at it from both ends. Start with a budget, and then it may well be that you say, "Well, we can't achieve that with your budget, but if we just up it by a certain amount, we can."
Yeah.
As we have done in the past, you and I. It's about marrying the two up. But there's no point in coming back with a proposal that says I can spend 50,000 quid if you go, "Well, I've only got a budget of 500 quid." You've got to have a basis on which to start.
Yeah. Right. I had loads of questions, but we're nearly out of time. So I've said at the outset that this really could run over 2 sessions, but that'll depend on you guys. So what I'd like you to do as I go around is Perhaps let us know which area that have been covered you personally feel, given your own website and circumstances, you'd want to dive in more to. Is it SEO? Is it analytics and being able to read it? Is it copy? Is it photography? Whatever. So I'm going to start with Nick and carry on. Nick.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andrew and Ollie. Brilliant presentation. There's loads of really valuable content there. I think we've covered such a diverse topic today, haven't we? It's massive, and I think that's maybe, Paul, why you're saying should we have a follow-up session and dig in a bit more detail. I think for me personally, the challenges for me around the mechanism of actually bringing people to the website. So I think I've created a website that I feel fairly happy with, and I know I'm doing a lot of work with Ollie to optimize it, and it's really now bringing the traffic to that website so you can then convert them. And there's so many things that you can do. Sometimes I think you can just get lost and you can't see the wood from the trees.
I suppose if you don't get the traffic, you can't actually analyze it. And if you can't analyze it, you can't test it and whatever. So traffic is key. Tracy, good to have you on our call again today. What about you?
So I thought it was fascinating. I'm kind of probably interested in all of it, but the bit that I'm most interested in at the moment is the whole analytical bit and how you get that on your website and read it and get the reports, because I don't even know if my website's doing any good at all or not, because I haven't got any way of judging that.
I must admit that would be one of the subjects I would have. Rod?
Well, I think you already know my view. I'm going to go out there, get my bloody mop and my squeegee. I'm going to clean my shop window. I'm going to make sure I got the offer of the week in. I'm going to make sure the heating's turned on, the lighting's on. I'm going to make sure it's enticing for people to come inside, and especially to allow them to realise that coming to me means a non-fragmented approach and always available on one-to-one basis. So, yeah, lots of things. I mean, loads of notes. You can imagine, can't you? It's key in what I do because I'm reactive.
That's good. That's good. Martin.
Yeah, probably the same. SEO, Google Ads, analytics. I mean, I know how to design a website, but that I really found it interesting. What the two guys were talking about today, just about how to optimize your website. So yeah, I found that great. Thanks, both of you. It's really good.
Anne-Marie.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you both. That was really useful. Lots of things to work on my website, and I think that's something that Ollie and I are going to be doing anyway going forward. So yeah, lots of things to think about. Thank you very much.
Good. Jason.
Yeah, again, thanks guys. And I know how much effort goes into that kind of presentation. And what I also love about, and this is why this kind of group is so good, I really had to smile, is I only work with pre-built templates because I'm not a visual designer. And we obviously, it's always the business outcome, but I love the fact that there's so many very different perspectives and everybody's right in their own space. And we all draw our clients on that. But I think, yeah, the most valuable thing initially is to test the conversion. And would that actually be a valid point, maybe even Paul, just for the next few sessions, if anybody that wants their website reviewed on the call live by Andrew and Ollie, to actually talk through it and they could look at it with fresh eyes. And then obviously the analytics to see what is the conversion process. And if someone lands on the web page, are they going to, if there's a phone number there, the first thing I always do when I check people's websites is actually ring the number. And quite often you get the answering service isn't answered, or it's answered incorrectly, or the number's dead, or even the simplest thing is that you could spend thousands and actually have a single link broken in the chain, and then it doesn't work. So maybe to do a round robin, and anybody who wants to volunteer their website to be reviewed, that would be really good.
I think that's a very good suggestion. Very good there. Marcus.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew and Ollie. That was excellent. And yeah, I agree with Nick. I think what I'd like to find more about is getting more traffic to my website. I've been following my analytics for a couple of years now, and it always seems to stay the same amount of people every day looking. So I just wonder how I need to increase that. And also, I'd also like to say to Ollie, a big thank you for a great one-to-one he had with me last week. in sorting out the bullet journal method that he recommended and starting him off on my journey with this. And yeah, you explained it really well, and you really infused me. I bought the book as you recommended.
Okay.
I've even bought the pens you recommended. Thank you very much, Ollie. That was really, really informative. And I think it was so good. I think Ollie should do yet another talk for us all on the benefits of the bullet journal.
Is a bullet journal a bit Zen-like and Buddhist-like?
Not hugely. It's kind of combining, mindfulness and productivity, and then into what's called intentionality, so doing things with purpose. So yeah, it has that element of kind of Zen-like, but I can picture you like, you know, as the Zen web designer, because you've got the haircut for the Buddhists. Andy, finally you. No, not finally you, because I'm going to come on to Ollie and Andrew in a minute.
I don't want to follow on from the Buddhist like haircut, Paul, but
yeah.
Absolutely,
being harassed.
So thanks, guys. It was a very good presentation. Lots of things in there that, I mean, I've chewed quite a few of them over recently with Ollie anyway, and we'll do more so in the future. But to put a car analogy on it, it's the same thing. And you don't have a wonderful car and don't keep it in tip-top condition. You don't check that it's got tires in tires have got air, all those bits and pieces. So we need to do that with our websites as well. So yeah, lots of notes and things to have a look at. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to ask some searching questions now, just very quickly, just as we end. I've always found when I used to deal with hairdressers, they were the last people to actually get their own hair done. And web designers are very often the last people to fix their own website. What one area do you think your website needs fixing, Ollie?
Good question. And I knew that was going to come, Paul. Many places. One of them is my portfolio is wildly out of date. And that's just from a time point of view. I haven't allocated time to update it. So I'm aware that it's not showing off some of the newer work which I've done in a good way. I'm also aware, and this has been on my list for ages, is that my inner pages aren't optimized enough. So there's not clear call to action. So like on the services pages, there aren't as many call to actions as there should be. And also on my location pages, they're very well optimized and they work well in terms of getting traffic to them. But again, they're not optimized for conversion. So, a bit like Jason was saying there, is like, it's great to get the traffic or to your site, but you need to know that your website's built for conversion. And my location pages, they don't have examples of work which I've done on there. So that's on the portfolio. So again, that needs to be optimized. So yeah, there's unfortunately plenty of work for me to do on my own.
When you got time to do it. And finally, Andrew.
I think it'd be easier to tell you what's right on my website rather than what's wrong with it, to be totally honest. It's very much a case of done was better than perfect. And yeah, I mean, especially last year, I was crazy busy. And this year, I think I said on the call before, actually, that this year for me is all about working smarter rather than harder. And part of the thing that I'm going to be doing this year is to actually, take my website by the scruff of the neck and get it sorted out, because it's not optimized for anything. It's got some horrible stock photography on it, etc., etc., etc. It's a long old list, and that's definitely one of the things I'm sorting out this year to actually use my website to convert, which it doesn't at the moment. And you think, oh, someone's connected with me on my website. It's like, I'm actually a referral.
It only goes to show that it's not important to go for perfect. It's important to start, get something up there, and then fix it. And the fact that we've all got something up there after today's session, we know perhaps what we need to fix. So I'll review with Ollie and Andrew later on about where we take this next. But from what we've said is that there's certain areas that we all want to dive into, and I suggest that we do that next week. So guys, I know what it's like to put a presentation together, and I've seen many, many people in my time with B&I put presentations together, but rarely ever come across anything as informed, well-timed, well-coordinated, and inclusive as you guys, and I mean that. And I think we all, again, deserve to give Andrew and Ollie another round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My slide things need a bit of a tweak. Get the right slide up.
Guys, and girls, have a really great week, and we'll see you all next week. And I'll be putting certain little bits of this up on social media. And if you do see it, comment on it, share it, and let's get some exposure for Ollie and Andrew. All the very best.
Well, thanks all.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thanks, Ollie.